Good morning, church. I'll ask us to just take our seats for a couple of minutes. It feels good to be here. I've been looking forward to this all week. So today I just want to start this service with a short devotion. I won't take up too much of your time because I want us to have ample time, or is it humble time, depending on your teacher, for the worship part of this service. So you've had people say, like, when something is considered to be really difficult, people say that it's like Greek. Yeah, what you're saying is like Greek to me. Yeah, but ever since the COVID pandemic began, it's like we've been learning Greek by force. Yeah. The first variant that came out of Wuhan in China was called the Alpha variant. And then after that, they started naming them according to the letters of the Greek alphabet, right? If you remember the Delta variant, sometime in 2020 going into 2021, yeah? So anyway, every time the scientists discover a new variant, they give it a letter of the Greek alphabet. And the one we are all now familiar with is Omicron. Right, or Omicron. Apologies for how I sound. I've been struggling a bit with a homa this week. That's why I'm a bit raspy. So we all know about this variant, Omicron, right? Omicron. But something I found really interesting is that in the Greek alphabet, there are two O's, right? Just like the way in Kikuyu, there are two U's. Yeah, there's the U for Oka, and then there's the U for Uga. Those are two different U's, yeah? So Greek is the same. They have two different O's. There's the small O, and there's the big O. The small O is Omicron, O micro. It's the small one. And the big O is Omega. Mega, meaning big, yeah? Which I found very interesting. And I just had a word about that. This is something that has been shaping our lives over the last few months. Actually, we're going on to 2 years of this pandemic, right? But there's something that I know for sure, that our God is not the Omicron. He's the Omega, right? The Alpha and the Omega. So we know that in Greek, Alpha is the first letter of the Greek alphabet. And Omega is the last one, right? And it's one of the titles that John the Revelator writes in the book of Revelation, that Christ is the Alpha and the Omega. And even adds to say the beginning and the end, right? The first and the last. And I was reflecting on that this week. What does that really mean when we say that God is the Alpha and the Omega, right? I mean, this is something we've been saying all the time, Alpha and Omega, right? But what does it really mean? This week when I was doing my devotion, I came across this that says that describing Christ or describing God as Alpha and Omega designates the comprehensiveness of God, right? That God is not just at the beginning and at the end, right? But he's comprehensive in everything in the middle. Does that make sense? He's not just at the starting point and at the finish line, but he's in the race with you. Amen? He's comprehensive in everything that is in the middle of what is Alpha in our lives and what is Omega. Yeah? You know, this calling Christ the Alpha and the Omega means that he is the first and the last, but he's also everything in between. Yeah? Psalms 90 verse 2, one of my favorite verses in the Psalm says, this is God talking about himself, that from everlasting to everlasting, yeah? From everlasting to everlasting, David says, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. What does that mean? It means that the present moment that you're in is part of that everlasting. Amen? It's not that I know that we say that God exists outside of time, but sometimes we forget that he's in the moment that we are in right now. He's still in time. He's not bound by time, but he's not external of time. Amen. The moment you're in right now is part of that everlasting. When David says that from everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Basically, that's what he's talking about, yeah? So I just want us to reflect on this as we begin this service, that God is comprehensive in everything that is going on in our lives. Amen. That God is not just at the starting point or at the finish line waiting for you to finish well. I know we talk about that, running the race, right? We press on. And sometimes we actually detach ourselves really in a deep kind of emotional and psychological way from what we are truly going through right now, today. Because our minds, we are always training our minds on the end, that it's going to be okay in the end, forgetting that God is right here with us in this moment, which is part of his everlasting. Amen. So as we begin this service, I just hope that these words will bless you and will minister to you. I am so much of a nerd that I have to bring in all this nerdy stuff, so just forgive me. I also found out this week that in Hebrew, right, the word for truth is the word emet, E-M-E-T. But in the Hebrew alphabet, the first letter of that word is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the last letter of that word is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So basically, the way the Old Testament expresses this thing, that he is Alpha and Omega, also has this connotation that he is the embodiment of all truth. Amen. In Hebrew, in the Old Testament, when God is described as the first and the last, the beginning and the end, there's also that aspect of he captures everything that is true and wonderful. Yeah? That even in him being the Alpha and the Omega, everything that is in the middle there is good and true. Amen. We always say that the devil is a liar, and I know that we say that a lot. But, when you actually reflect on it, the devil is a liar. There is no truth in him at all. But God is everything that is wonderful and true and good and beautiful that makes life worth living. Amen. Your life is a gift. This moment is a gift. And this service, this day, is part of that everlasting. Amen. Worship team, my people. Yes.
What do I do when you say God is Alpha and Omega,
Yeah.
and He's also in the in-between? What do I do when I don't feel it?
I can give you the Christianese response, the one which will be palatable to everyone here, or I can give you what I truly think. Let me start with Christian. Let me just be nice. I think we should just claim and declare that in him all things are finished. That even, despite what you're feeling right now, he is still seated on the throne. And we declare that even if we don't feel it, yeah? And in my life, there's room for that. But these days, I'm a lot more I grown a lot more with God than I used to. I don't rush to the end to claim the promises. I stay in the Lamentations. Do you guys read Lamentations? Lamentations is something that's a book that will bless you. When you really want to be real with yourself and with God. This guy Jeremiah was just saying things. Even me, I wouldn't talk to God like this. Jeremiah says, you have lain in wait for me like a bear to crush my bones. This is what he's saying about God. You have set a trap for me and ground my bones into dust. What? I mean, that's how abandoned, that's how isolated, that's how lonely he feels, right? But the amazing thing that, we all rush to is when in chapter 3, verse 23, he says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, and his mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. That's in verse 23. From verse 1 to 22, Jeremiah is just wilding, like for real. But he's being honest. That's how he feels. He feels like God is a bear that has torn him to pieces, you know? He says that I've cried so much that I've run out of tears, right? I can't even remember how to cry anymore. I mean, like I know that we go through really painful things in life, but I don't know if you've ever run out of tears. Like, have you ever, hey, you guys, hey. If you're an adult adulting in this Nairobi, najua nyinyi wote mmelia. All of you have cried in your beds in the night by yourself, yeah? But there's that little thing at the end of the day that you can hold on to, as weak as it feels, right? You know, in God, there's strength in weak things. Yeah? I don't know if you know that a spider's silk, the stuff that makes the spider's web, is the strongest substance. That it's stronger than steel, like weight for weight. I don't know if you knew that. It looks very flimsy, right? But when the engineers actually tested it according to like its tactile strength, spider's silk is the strongest substance. Yeah, it's stronger, like millimeter by millimeter, stronger than steel, yeah? But it looks very flimsy, right? But the kind of weight that substance is able to hold is amazing. And let your faith be like that. It may not look like much, but it can do a lot. So like Jesus says that all he's looking for is the faith of a mustard seed. I don't know if you guys know mustard. Have you ever seen mustard seeds? They are so small. They're so tiny. But when you fry them and put them in oil, your whole kitchen smells of mustard. Yeah? For those of us who use spices. I know si kila mtu alikuwa na grace ya spices. But anyway, Pastor Martin, what I'm saying is that I have a much more honest and a faith that has a lot of lamentation and grief in it. But I just feel like I'm getting to a place where I can truly tell God how I feel. Amen. He's the Alpha and the Omega, and this moment is part of that everlasting. Amen.